Hello and welcome to the SDRealness Podcast, brought to you by SD Revolution, where we talk with sales development practitioners about their take on important topics in the space. I'm Grayson Fulbright, and here with me is my co-host, Alex Ellison.
Hey, Grayson.
This month, we're focused on becoming a leader in the SDR role. And today's topic is really interesting. It's about getting out of that comfort zone so you can actually go out and grow your career and reach that leadership position. Joining us today is Spencer Rogich, who is an enterprise account executive at Sifted, which is a startup parcel optimization software that's powered by artificial intelligence. Thank you so much for hopping on with us, Spencer.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex and Grayson, for having me on here. I'm really excited to share some of the tools and tactics that I've been using that have helped me propel my career forward, and hopefully I can give you guys some good nuggets to take away.
Yeah, awesome. Super excited to have you. To kick things off and frame our conversation, Spencer, I want to first just get your take on what it means to get out of your comfort zone, just in general, and also as an SDR and as a rep. What does it mean? What does it involve? And why is it so important to your growth as an SDR?
Yeah, getting out of your comfort zone is so crucial in sales or really anything in your life. Whenever you become complacent, that's when you stop learning. Once you stop learning, that's when all the problems are going to happen. For me, this is a huge opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone. I'm more of a naturally introverted person. I like to kind of just stay inside my head. I don't like to share things and don't like to be, judged by what people may think of me. And so doing things every single day to get you out of that comfort zone is going to propel you for success. That's going to allow you to try new things. A big problem that I see is a lot of people are taking in all this information about, video prospecting or, just picking up the phone and dialing. They're afraid. And the biggest way to get rid of that fear is to taking that plunge into that cold water, going headfirst into that challenge or any type of adversity that you see, and coming through on the other side, knowing that you can achieve whatever you put your mind to. And that sounds super cliche, but it's true. Once you dive into that fear no longer is there, and then you start developing that confidence, and that confidence is what's going to propel you to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You kind of brought up two pieces that I wanted to touch on. One is about the idea that, like being uncomfortable isn't something that's usually a choice. You mentioned, once you stop learning, that's when things go downhill. And I completely agree. And I think that's kind of the rule, especially in sales. You always need to be learning, which means implicitly you always need to be uncomfortable and really getting yourself out there and trying and practicing, gaining experience. And then the second thing that you brought up that I thought was interesting was about, you yourself are, generally an introverted person. And, I think there's a lot of stigma around people who aren't just super social and always just ready to go and talk to everybody. And, there are different types of people with different motivations. And I think it's important to recognize that, whether you're extroverted, whether you're introverted, and really however you're approaching a sales or marketing career, you need to be able to find what makes you uncomfortable. And that's going to be different for different people. So I wanted to kind of transition into some mistakes that maybe you have made or maybe you see others making when they're trying to make this shift from being comfortable, being safe, to actually actively learning and actively pressing themselves to grow. Have you seen anything out there that people should stop doing or maybe should be aware of?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people are doing is they're not following the process. They're not being consistent. So you see one takeaway and then you try it for one day or maybe even a week, and then you don't experience the results that in your mind you thought that you were going to get. So I think just being consistent and sticking to the game plan, obviously, chart out what your big goals are and then how are you breaking those down into smaller pieces and doing those every single day. One analogy that I always like to go back to is doing bodybuilding and winning bodybuilding shows. I see that what's my outcome that I want to have on the stage? And then, what do I need to do every single day to make sure it happens? the same thing with sales. If you have a revenue target or you have a number of meetings you need to book, having that be the big picture, and then what your daily discipline is going to be. Don't be so attached to what the result is that day. Be attached to the process of it, and knowing that process is going to get that outcome. And so I think just the biggest thing is staying consistent with it. Obviously, if it's not working for you, then you can change and you can reroute. But don't give up so early. Don't be so discouraged if you don't see results immediately. Anything that's great is going to take time. And even if you decide that whatever it is you're doing isn't working, you at least learn from that, and you can use those experiences to try something new.
Yeah, and I think that's just so vitally important, the consistent day-to-day, I guess, process that you create for yourself so that you can hit those goals. I know when I was an SDR, you'd be, at first, yeah, I was scared to pick up the phone. Most people are. That's, why we're having this conversation. But, picking up the phone the first time, you're still going to be scared the second time and the fifth time and the 10th time. And it really does take that repetition and that consistent day over day process to really get used to and get comfortable with these things that you just, like, when you started, didn't think you'd ever be able to do. And all of a sudden you're making 80, 100 dials a day. You look back and you're like, oh, that was easy. Why was I so scared of that first? So I think that's a huge piece of advice that it does get lost sometimes, because the SDR role can be sort of monotonous if you look at it that way. If you're just sort of looking for the goal and it's just another no, another no, another no. But if you're looking at it as this process, like you're talking about, it does give you a way better, I think, mental framework for what you'd be able to accomplish and what you need to do to get to that point. So to move sort of from that into some other top tips and pieces of advice, Spencer, do you have any other, sort of golden nuggets that you might share, maybe even more tactical about, how an SDR can get into that mindset and maintain it throughout the process and throughout the journey?
Yeah, definitely. So what you mentioned actually brought something to mind that I've done in the past. Is getting no isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you can make a game of that and go for no, like see how many times you can get told no, and you just make that like a game, then you're going to be moving yourself forward. As soon as you get rid of a no, you're one step closer to getting to that yes. And another interesting thing to think about is fear and excitement is essentially the same exact feeling. So if you're enjoying that fear, that's excitement. Like right now, I'm scared, but I'm not scared because I'm super excited to be here and to share my story with you guys. And so I think not being necessarily afraid of that fear and stepping into it and being embraced by that fear is a huge thing. And just thinking, okay, what is this emotion that I'm feeling? How can I turn this emotion into something positive? And if the biggest fear is getting a no, then that's a check mark on the game. Like you're one step closer to a yes, and you're essentially making, your cold calling tactics just a game. That's all it is a big game that we're playing, and you'll get no's, you'll get yeses, but either way, you're winning.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like, I think fear stops a lot of people because of how they perceive it. Especially if you let ego get in the way, especially if you're new in your career and you're trying to, get to that level, you're trying to impress your peers and your boss. It just, the effect of a no could just be so hideous. It's like almost like that door, the unknown beyond it, it's just so terrible for a lot of people. But if you take a step back and kind of see that big picture of like, it's not about that one call and that one outcome. It's about me and my ability to execute a process that's going to create enough yeses for us to win, and not worrying about or getting stuck or lost in the weeds, trying to just worry about a no or worry that you're not going to perform in a certain aspect of your role. So I think that's awesome advice. So Spencer, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about, what it means to get out of your comfort zone as an SDR. But before we close out, where can people find more about you and about Sifted?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, just Spencer Rogich, Rogich. And then if you want to learn more about Sifted or what we can do for you in the technology space for transportation, sifted.com, and you can converse with me there.
Awesome. Cool, Spencer. Well, thank you so much. This has been Alex and Grayson for the SDRealness Podcast. Until next time, SDRs, keep it real.
Thanks, guys. See ya.